The champagne glass shattered against marble, and Elena Hartley didn't flinch. She'd stopped flinching 3 hours ago when the first Omega was claimed, then the second, then the 10th. Now, as the 27th mating announcement echoed through the Grand Cascades ballroom, Elena simply pressed herself deeper into the velvet alcove behind the ice sculpture and pretended she didn't exist. It was a skill she'd perfected over 24 years. "Did you see Margot's alpha?" A voice drifted past her hiding spot, sharp with champagne and cruelty. 6'4", owns half of Colorado. She's so lucky. Better than being invisible. Laughter, pointed, deliberate. Elena's fingers curled against her thighs, nails biting through the thin silk of her dress. The gown had cost her 3 months of savings from her bookstore job, midnight blue with delicate beading that caught the light. She'd thought maybe, just maybe, if she looked like she belonged here, someone would actually see her. Stupid. The mating ball wasn't for girls like her. It was for Omegas with bloodlines that stretched back centuries, with families who controlled territory and wealth, with scents that made alphas go half mad with need. Elena's scent was forgettable. Rain on pavement, old books, nothing that would make a powerful alpha turn his head, let alone cross a ballroom to claim her. Her grandmother's voice whispered through memory, soft and certain. "You'll find where you belong, sweet girl. When the time is right, you'll be exactly where you're meant to be." The time was never right. Elena reached for her phone, ready to call a car and disappear before someone noticed her sitting alone like a piece of discarded furniture. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then every light in the ballroom went out. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Elena's heart kicked against her ribs as emergency lighting flickered on, bathing everything in an eerie blue glow. The massive chandeliers swayed slightly, disturbed by something she couldn't name. "What's happening?" someone whispered. The answer came in the form of heat. It rolled through the room like a living thing, thick and oppressive and wild. Elena felt it against her skin, raising goosebumps along her arms despite the warmth. Power, raw, ancient, and completely terrifying. The ballroom doors exploded open. 3 figures stepped through the smoke and scattered light, and Elena's breath simply stopped. They moved like apex predators, each step deliberate and devastating. The crowd parted without being asked, instinct screaming at them to get out of the way. These weren't ordinary alphas. These were something else entirely. Dragons. The word formed in Elena's mind before she could stop it. Dragon alphas were myths, legends whispered about in old books and older bloodlines. They didn't attend mating balls. They didn't mix with common shifter packs. They certainly didn't look at forgotten Omegas hiding behind ice sculptures with eyes that glowed like molten gold in the darkness. But all 3 of them were staring directly at her. The tallest one moved first. He stood at least 6'6", with black hair that fell just past his collar and a face carved from stone and shadow. His suit probably cost more than Elena's entire year of rent. Everything about him screamed control, power, danger, barely leashed. The second was shorter by an inch, with warm bronze skin and dark eyes that held something gentler beneath the predatory gleam. His presence felt different, softer somehow, though no less intense. The third made Elena's pulse spike for entirely different reasons. Wild copper hair, a scar cutting through one eyebrow, and a smile that promised chaos. He looked at her like he wanted to set the world on fire just to watch her reaction. They stopped 10 feet away from her alcove. The entire ballroom had gone silent. 500 alphas, betas, and omegas from every major pack in North America, and not a single one of them made a sound. The tall one spoke first, his voice rolling through the space like distant thunder. Elena Hartley. Her name in his mouth felt like a claim she hadn't agreed to. "You don't know me," Elena managed, her voice shakier than she wanted. "There's been a mistake." "No mistake." The bronze-skinned one stepped forward, his movements fluid and careful, like approaching something fragile. "We've been searching for you for a very long time." "I'm nobody," Elena said, and hated how true it sounded. "You want someone else." The wild one laughed, sharp and bright. "Oh, sweetheart, you're the only one we want." Heat crawled up Elena's neck. Around them, whispers started to build. She caught fragments, each one worse than the last. Dragon alphas never claim. Why would they want her? There's nothing special about. The tall one's eyes flashed gold, pure and molten. The whispers died instantly. "My name is Caden Thornfield," he said, gaze locked on Elena. "These are my brothers, Asher and Riker. We're here to offer you a choice." "What kind of choice?" Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her dress. Pretend like you're ours, Caden said simply. The ballroom erupted. Elena couldn't process the noise, the shock, the way every eye in the room suddenly fixed on her with a mixture of confusion and envy and outright disbelief. Her brain snagged on one word and wouldn't let go. Pretend? Asher's expression softened. It's complicated, but we need a mate for political reasons, and you need a way out of invisibility. We can help each other. This is insane, Elena breathed. Probably, Riker agreed, still smiling that dangerous smile. But you were about to leave this place alone and forgotten. Again. We're offering you the chance to walk out of here claimed by the three most powerful alphas on the continent. He leaned in slightly, voice dropping. So what's it going to be, Elena? Stay invisible, or let us make you unforgettable? Her hands were glowing again. Soft blue light pulsed beneath her skin, and Elena had no idea what it meant or how to make it stop. She looked at the three dragon alphas watching her with intensity that made her feel seen for the first time in her life. Then she looked at the ballroom full of people who'd never once noticed she existed. Okay, Elena whispered. Caden's smile was slow and absolutely devastating. Then come here, Omega. Let's make this official. Elena's legs didn't want to move. Every instinct screamed at her to stay hidden, to sink back into the velvet alcove and disappear into the shadows where she belonged. But Caden's eyes held hers with an intensity that felt like gravity, pulling her forward against her will. She took one step. The blue glow beneath her skin pulsed brighter. What's happening to me? Elena's voice cracked on the question. She stared at her hands, at the light threading through her veins like liquid starlight. This isn't normal, I don't do this. You do now. Riker's grin widened, and there was something almost hungry in the way he watched the light dance across her fingers. And it's beautiful. It's terrifying, Elena corrected, but she took another step anyway. The crowd pressed closer, phones raised, cameras flashing. She could hear the frantic whispers, the speculation building like a storm. Someone laughed, high and disbelieving. Someone else cursed. Asher moved suddenly, positioning himself between Elena and the nearest cluster of onlookers. His body blocked the cameras, and when he spoke, his voice carried a warning that made several people step back. Give her space. It wasn't a request. Elena's heart hammered as she crossed the remaining distance. Up close, the three of them were even more overwhelming. Caden radiated cold authority, every line of his body controlled and deliberate. Asher's presence felt steadier, protective in a way that made her chest ache, and Riker looked at her like she was the most interesting thing he'd seen in centuries. I don't understand any of this, Elena said quietly, stopping just out of reach. The glow was fading now, sinking back beneath her skin, but she could still feel it humming there, waiting. Why me? What do you actually want? Honestly? Caden tilted his head, studying her with those unnerving gold eyes. We're not entirely sure yet. The admission shocked her into silence. Helpful, brother, Asher muttered. She asked for truth. Caden's gaze never left Elena. Here's what I know. You're an Omega with no notable bloodline, no pack affiliation, and a scent that should be completely unremarkable. But the moment you walked into this ballroom tonight, every Dragon Alpha within a 50-mile radius felt it. Elena's stomach dropped. Felt what? You. Riker circled to her left, movements liquid and too graceful for someone his size. Like a beacon going off. We didn't come here for a mating ball. We came because something dragged us here, something we couldn't ignore. That doesn't make sense, Elena protested. I'm nobody. I work in a bookstore. I live alone in a studio apartment. There's nothing special about me. Your hands were glowing, Asher pointed out gently. Fair point. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold despite the oppressive heat still lingering in the air. So what happens now? You claim me in front of everyone, and then what? We go back to your territory and pretend to be mates until you figure out what's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you, Caden said, and the certainty in his voice startled her. But yes, that's essentially the arrangement. You're asking me to lie to an entire ballroom full of shifters. Elena looked around at the hundreds of faces watching them, judging, calculating. To pretend I mated to 3 Dragon Alphas I just met. Do you know how insane that sounds? Completely insane, Riker agreed cheerfully. But you're still standing here. Because the alternative was going home alone to her empty apartment and pretending tonight never happened. Pretending she hadn't felt something shift the moment these 3 walked through those doors. Pretending her hands hadn't lit up like she was something more than forgettable. What do I have to do? The question came out smaller than Elena intended. Caden extended his hand. Take my hand. Let me scent you. That's all. That's not all, Elena countered. Scenting is intimate, it's a claim. A temporary one. But Caden's expression had shifted into something almost soft. We won't bond you without consent. This is theater, Elena. A performance to satisfy the crowd and buy us time to understand what you are. What she was, not who. The distinction made her feel like a problem to be solved rather than a person to be known. Still, she reached out. The moment her fingers touched Caden's palm, the world tilted. Heat exploded through her, white-hot and electric. It raced up her arm, across her chest, and pooled low in her belly. Elena gasped, knees buckling, but Caden caught her easily. His other hand came up to cup the back of her neck, and when he leaned in, she could smell smoke and winter nights and something wild she had no name for. Breathe, he murmured against her temple. She couldn't. Her lungs had forgotten how. Caden's thumb traced the pulse point below her ear, and Elena felt her scent release in a rush. It flooded the space between them, and she waited for it to be nothing. Forgettable rain and old paper. Except it wasn't. The scent that rolled off her skin was storm and lightning and ozone. It was the moment before the sky split open. It was power barely contained, wild and raw and absolutely nothing like what she'd spent 24 years believing she was. Riker made a sound low in his throat, somewhere between a growl and a curse. Well, he said roughly, that's new. Asher had gone completely still, his dark eyes wide. Caden. I know. Caden's grip on Elena tightened fractionally, and when he pulled back to look at her, there was something almost like wonder in his expression. Elena, how long have you been suppressing your scent? I'm not. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. This is just what I smell like. No. Asher moved closer. And gods, he smelled like summer rain and growing things. This is what you smell like when you're not hiding. When did you start hiding? Elena's mind spun back through years of being overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. I don't know. Always. Someone taught you to suppress, Caden said, and there was an edge of anger beneath the words now. Someone made you believe you were less than you are. The accusation hung in the air between them. Around them, the ballroom had erupted into chaos again. Elena caught fragments of conversation, each one more frantic than the last. Storm touch, that's impossible. Dragon blessed bloodline. Hasn't been one in 300 years. A woman pushed through the crowd, tall and elegant with silver blonde hair and a dress that probably cost more than Elena's car. Her expression was pure venom. This is a joke, she announced, voice cutting through the noise. You can't seriously expect anyone to believe this. Nobody is dragon blessed. Look at her. Elena flinched, instinct making her want to curl in on herself. Riker stepped in front of her so fast she didn't see him move. Careful, Vivienne, he said, voice dropping into something dangerous. You're talking about our mate. The woman, Vivienne, laughed. Your pretend mate. Everyone here knows this is political theater. The Thornfield triplets, desperate enough to claim some bookstore Omega just to maintain appearances. It's pathetic. What's pathetic? Asher said quietly, but his voice carried. Is insulting someone you know nothing about because you're angry you weren't chosen. Vivienne's face flushed red. Elena's hands started glowing again, brighter this time. The light spread up her arms, across her collarbones, and she felt something inside her crack open. Something that had been locked away for so long she'd forgotten it existed. Stop, she whispered. The room went silent. Elena wasn't talking to Vivienne. She was talking to whatever was waking up inside her, clawing its way to the surface after decades of forced sleep. But it wouldn't stop. The light burst outward in a wave, and every window in the ballroom exploded. Glass rained down like crystal stars. Elena felt the explosion more than heard it, a shock wave that rippled outward from her body and tore through the ballroom with surgical precision. Every window shattered simultaneously, the sound a symphony of destruction that should have been deafening but somehow wasn't. The world had gone quiet, muffled, like she was underwater. She watched the glass fall in slow motion, each shard catching the emergency lights and scattering rainbow fractals across screaming faces. Then time snapped back. People dove for cover, tables overturned. Someone was shouting about calling security, calling the council, calling anyone who could explain what the hell just happened. Elena stood frozen in the center of the chaos, her hands still glowing, her chest heaving with breaths that wouldn't come fast enough. Elena. Asher's voice cut through the noise, steady and calm. His hand found her shoulder, warm and grounding. Look at me. She couldn't. She was staring at a woman near the dessert table who was bleeding from a cut on her cheek, at a man brushing glass from his hair, at the destruction she'd caused without meaning to. "I didn't mean to," Elena whispered. "I don't know how to stop it." "Then don't stop it." Riker appeared at her other side, and he was smiling like this was the most exciting thing that had happened to him in years. "Let it out. Let everyone see what you really are." "I don't know what I am," Elena said, and her voice broke on the admission. The light was spreading now, crawling down her legs, pooling at her feet. The marble floor beneath her cracked, thin fractures spreading outward in a perfect circle. Caden moved in front of her, blocking her view of the ballroom, forcing her to focus on him instead of the damage. His gold eyes were steady, unafraid. "You're an Omega who's been caged her entire life," he said, "and the cage just broke. That's all this is." "All?" Elena laughed, and it came out sharp and broken. "I just destroyed a ballroom full of the most powerful shifters in North America. They're going to kill me. Or worse, they're going to study me like some kind of experiment." "They'll have to go through us first," Asher said quietly. The simple certainty in his voice made Elena's throat tight. These three didn't know her. They'd met her 10 minutes ago, and yet they were standing between her and a room full of people who absolutely had the power and authority to make her disappear. Why? Before she could ask, a new voice cut through the chaos. "Everyone calm down." An older man stepped forward, his silver hair gleaming in the fractured light. He wore a formal suit with a council pin on the lapel, the kind that marked him as someone with actual authority. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes were sharp as they swept over Elena and the triplets. "Councilman Pierce," Caden said, and there was ice in his tone. "Didn't expect to see you here. I attend every mating ball in the Western Territories," Pierce replied smoothly. "It's my responsibility to ensure proper protocol is followed." His gaze settled on Elena. "And I'm fairly certain exploding windows violates several protocols." Elena felt her face heat. "I didn't mean to." "Intent is irrelevant, damage is damage." Pierce gestured to the shattered glass, the cracked floor, the terrified crowd. "You've disrupted a sacred ceremony and endangered countless lives. That requires an official inquiry." "She's under our protection," Caden said flatly. "Your protection doesn't override council authority." Pierce's smile was thin and dangerous. "Especially when the Omega in question is displaying power consistent with a bloodline that's been extinct for 3 centuries. Dragon-blessed Omegas answer to the council, not to individual alphas, even dragon alphas." The crowd murmured agreement. Elena caught snatches of conversation, most of it about her, none of it kind. She could be dangerous. If she really is dragon-blessed, the council needs to contain her. Can't just let some nobody walk around with that kind of power. The word contain made Elena's skin crawl. She'd read enough history to know what happened to rare bloodlines when the council got involved. They were catalogued, controlled, bred like livestock to preserve their gifts. She took a step back, but Asher's hand tightened on her shoulder. "You're not taking her," he said. "I'm not taking anyone," Pierce corrected. "I'm simply suggesting that Miss Hartley undergo proper evaluation to determine the nature and extent of her abilities. For her safety as much as everyone else's." It sounded reasonable, logical. It felt like a trap. "And if I refuse?" Elena asked, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Pierce's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Then you'll be labeled a rogue Omega with uncontrolled power. Every pack in North America will have legal authority to subdue you by whatever means necessary. Is that really the future you want?" No. But neither was being locked in some council facility and treated like a weapon instead of a person. Elena looked at Caden, at Asher, at Riker. 3 strangers who'd walked into her life less than half an hour ago and turned everything upside down. She didn't know them, didn't trust them, had no reason to believe they actually cared what happened to her beyond whatever mysterious pull had dragged them here tonight. But they were the only ones standing between her and a future that looked increasingly like a cage. "The claim," Elena said suddenly. "You said you wanted to claim me. Does that actually mean anything legally?" Caden's eyes narrowed, clearly understanding where she was going. "A formal claim gives us the right to protect you from outside interference. It's not absolute, but it would make taking you significantly more complicated for the council." "How formal are we talking?" "Blood exchange," Riker said, and there was heat in his voice now. "Scent marking. Public declaration. The whole traditional mess." Elena's pulse kicked up. Blood exchange meant piercing skin, meant tasting each other, meant a level of intimacy that made her stomach flip. Scent marking was even worse, required them to touch her in ways that would leave no doubt to anyone watching that she belonged to them. Belonged. The word made her want to run and stay in equal measure. If I do this, Elena said carefully, if I let you claim me, what happens after? Do I just become your property? Your problem to solve? You become our priority, Asher said. Not our property. There's a difference. Is there? Elena challenged. Because from where I'm standing, this looks like I'm trading one cage for another. Council control or triplet control. Either way, I lose my freedom. The words hung in the air, sharp and true. Caden was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something Elena didn't expect. He stepped back, putting space between them. You're right, he said. This is a cage. A prettier one maybe, but still a cage. His gold eyes met hers, and there was something almost like respect in them. So here's what I'm offering instead. Let us claim you tonight. Come back to our territory. Let us help you understand what you are and how to control it. Stay for 1 month. If at the end of that time you want to leave, we'll help you disappear. New identity, new life, somewhere the council can't touch you. You'd do that? Elena couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. Just let me go? We're not in the business of keeping people who don't want to be kept, Riker said, and for once he wasn't smiling. But we are in the business of protecting Omegas from people who would use them, and that council bastard absolutely wants to use you. Pierce's jaw tightened. Careful, Thornfield. Slander against council members carries consequences. So does threatening our mate, Riker shot back. Elena's mind raced. 1 month, 30 days to figure out what was happening to her, to learn control, to decide what kind of life she actually wanted. It wasn't freedom, but it was more choice than she'd had 5 minutes ago. And the alternative was letting Pierce take her to some council facility, where she'd become a case file instead of a person. Okay, Elena said. I'll do it. The claim, the month, all of it. Vivian's voice cut through from somewhere in the crowd. This is ridiculous. You can't seriously believe this performance. They're using her. Maybe, Elena said, turning to face the silver-blonde woman who'd insulted her. But at least they asked first. When's the last time anyone asked you anything, Vivian? Or did your alpha just claim you because it was expected? The direct hit landed. Vivian's face went scarlet. Elena turned back to Caden. How do we do this? He pulled a small knife from inside his jacket. The blade gleamed silver in the emergency lighting, delicate and deadly. Give me your hand. Elena's heart hammered as she extended her palm. Caden's fingers wrapped around her wrist, steady and warm. The knife pressed against her skin. A sharp, bright line of pain, and blood welled up in a thin, crimson line. Then he cut his own palm, the movement quick and practiced. This is your last chance to back out, Caden said quietly, holding his bleeding hand above hers. Once we do this, you're bound to us until you choose otherwise. Are you sure? No, she wasn't sure of anything. But staying here, letting Pierce take her, going back to her empty apartment and pretending tonight never happened, those options felt like dying slowly instead of living dangerously. I'm sure, Elena lied. Caden pressed his palm to hers. The bond snapped into place like a living thing, hot and fierce and absolutely nothing like Elena expected. It wasn't gentle, it wasn't gradual. It was a wildfire racing through her veins, burning away everything she thought she knew about herself, and leaving something new and terrifying in its place. She gasped, knees buckling, but Asher caught her before she fell. I've got you, he murmured against her ear. Then his teeth grazed her throat right over her pulse point, and Elena felt her scent explode outward again. Storm and lightning and raw power that made half the room take an instinctive step back. Riker moved in from her other side, his mouth finding the tender spot where her neck met her shoulder. His bite was sharper, more possessive, and Elena made a sound she'd never heard herself make before. The bond pulled tighter, weaving between the four of them, and Elena could feel them now. Caden's iron control and the fear beneath it, Asher's protectiveness and the guilt he carried like a weight, Riker's wild joy and the loneliness he hid behind his smile. They were just as broken as she was, just as scared. It's done, Caden said, his voice rough. He held up their joined hands, blood mingling, bond glowing with that same blue light that had started everything. Elena Hartley is claimed. Anyone who wants to challenge that can step forward now. Pierce looked like he wanted to. His hand twitched toward something in his jacket, but he caught himself. This isn't over, he said quietly. The council will want answers. Then they can come ask us, Riker said cheerfully. We'll be waiting. Elena swayed, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. The bond was still burning, still settling, and her body felt like it had run a marathon. Asher scooped her up without asking, cradling her against his chest like she weighed nothing. "Let's go home," he said. Home. Elena didn't have one of those. But as Asher carried her through the shattered ballroom, past the staring crowds and the broken glass and the life she was leaving behind, she thought maybe, just maybe, she was about to find out what home could feel like. Even if it was temporary. Even if it was built on lies. Even if it all fell apart in 30 days. The cold air hit Elena's face like a slap. Asher carried her through the ballroom's side exit, away from the cameras and questions and Pierce's calculating stare. The night swallowed them whole, dark and blessedly quiet after the chaos inside. Elena's ears were still ringing, her body still humming with the aftershocks of the bond. "Put me down," she said. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "You can barely stand." "I don't care, put me down." Asher hesitated, then lowered her carefully to her feet. Elena's legs shook, but they held. She pressed one hand against the building's brick wall, feeling the rough texture ground her back into her body. The bond pulsed in her chest, foreign and invasive and impossible to ignore. She could feel them, all three of them. Caden's cold focus as he spoke to someone on his phone, clipped and efficient. Riker's restless energy as he paced nearby, unable to stay still. And Asher, standing close enough to catch her if she fell, radiating concern like heat. It was too much, too intimate, like they'd carved open her chest and climbed inside. "This bond," Elena said, staring at her palm where Caden's blood had mixed with hers. The cut was already healing, shifter metabolism working fast, but she could still feel the echo of pain. "You said it wasn't permanent. You said I could leave." "You can," Caden said, pocketing his phone. "The blood claim creates connection, not imprisonment. It'll fade if you want it to." "How long?" "Depends on how much you feed it." Riker stopped pacing and leaned against a sleek black car that definitely hadn't been there a moment ago. "Bonds grow stronger with proximity, with touch, with trust. Starve it, and it withers. Simple." Nothing about this felt simple. Elena wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly aware that her expensive dress was ruined. Glass dust glittered across the silk, and there was a tear along the hem she didn't remember getting. She looked like she'd survived a war, not a party. "Where are we going?" she asked. "My place," Caden said. "It's secure, private. We can talk without an audience." "Talk about what?" "About why your scent changed the moment we touched you." Asher's voice was gentle, but his eyes were intense. "About why every dragon alpha in the territory felt you wake up tonight. About what the hell you actually are." "Elena, because you're not just an Omega with a rare bloodline." "Maybe I am," Elena shot back. "Maybe I'm exactly what I've always been, and you three are just desperate enough to see something that isn't there." Riker laughed, sharp and bright. "Sweetheart, desperate doesn't make windows explode. That was all you." The reminder made Elena's stomach twist. She'd destroyed property, endangered lives, lost control so completely that she still didn't know how she'd managed to stop. And these three were acting like it was fascinating instead of terrifying. "Get in the car," Caden said. It wasn't a command, but it wasn't quite a request either. Elena looked at the vehicle, then at the three Dragon Alphas watching her with varying degrees of intensity. Every instinct she'd honed over 24 years of staying invisible screamed at her to run. To call a cab, go home, pretend tonight never happened. But her hands were still tingling with power she didn't understand. Her scent had changed into something that made people stare. And the bond in her chest was pulling her toward these three strangers like gravity. She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and something darker, wilder. Asher slid in beside her, close enough that his thigh pressed against hers. Riker took the front passenger seat, twisting around to watch her with those unsettling eyes. Caden drove, his movements precise and controlled even as he navigated through late-night traffic. Elena stared out the window and tried to pretend she wasn't aware of every breath Asher took beside her. "You're scared," Asher said quietly. Observant. "You don't have to be. We're not going to hurt you." Elena turned to look at him. "You don't know that. You don't know what you're capable of any more than I know what I'm capable of. We're all just making promises we might not be able to keep." Something shifted in Asher's expression. "You're right. But I can promise that if I ever do hurt you, it won't be on purpose." "That's supposed to be comforting?" "It's supposed to be honest." The car fell quiet, except for the hum of tires on asphalt. Elena watched the city blur past, bright lights and dark alleys, until they crossed a bridge she recognized. They were heading into the historic district, where old money lived in houses that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Caden pulled into a gated driveway. The house beyond was exactly what Elena expected. Massive, modern, all glass and steel, and architectural intimidation. Lights glowed warm in the windows, making it look almost welcoming. Almost. "Home sweet home," Riker said, hopping out before the car fully stopped. Elena climbed out more slowly, her heels crunching on the gravel drive. The bond tugged as Caden moved toward the front door, an uncomfortable sensation like a hook behind her sternum. She followed because resisting felt worse. Inside, the house was just as intimidating as the exterior. High ceilings, expensive art on the walls, furniture that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything was clean and cold and perfect. "Third floor is yours," Caden said, shrugging off his jacket. "Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room, everything you need." "Mine?" Elena repeated. "You'll need space, privacy." He met her eyes. "This isn't a prison, Elena. You're free to move around, leave if you want. Though I'd appreciate it if you didn't disappear in the middle of the night without telling us." "Why do you care if I disappear?" The question came out sharper than intended, but Elena was exhausted and overwhelmed, and the bond was still burning in her chest like a second heartbeat. She needed answers, not careful politeness. Caden was quiet for a long moment. Then he crossed the distance between them, moving with that predatory grace that made her pulse spike. He stopped close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. "Because I watched you sit alone at that ball for 3 hours," he said quietly. "Watched you try to make yourself invisible while everyone else got chosen. And when I felt you wake up, felt that power burst through every mental shield I have, my first thought wasn't, 'What is she?' It was, 'She's been hurting for a very long time.'" Elena's throat went tight. "You don't know anything about me. I know you bought a dress you couldn't afford because you thought maybe this time would be different." Caden's voice was soft, almost gentle. "I know you were about to leave when we walked in. I know you're terrified right now, but you're still standing here because you're tired of being invisible." "Stop," Elena whispered. "Why? Because it's true?" "Because it hurts." The admission hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Elena felt Asher and Riker's attention like physical weight. All three of them focused on her with an intensity that made her skin feel too tight. "Good," Caden said. "Pain means you're still fighting. The moment you stop hurting is the moment you stop caring. And I need you to care, Elena, because whatever you are, whatever's waking up inside you, it's connected to us. We felt it the moment you walked into that ballroom. We felt you." "That's not possible," Elena protested. "Dragon alphas don't have fated mates. You choose your bonds. You don't just feel random omegas across the city." "We don't," Riker agreed, moving to lean against the staircase. "Which is why this is so fucking interesting. You're not our fated mate, sweetheart. You're something else entirely." "What does that mean?" Asher spoke up from where he'd settled into one of the pristine armchairs. "It means the bond we created tonight, the blood claim. It didn't create the connection. It just made visible what was already there." Elena's mind spun. "That doesn't make sense. I've never met you before tonight. I've never even seen Dragon Alphas in person." "Not consciously," Caden said, "but I'm starting to think someone made sure you never would. Someone who wanted to keep you hidden, keep your power suppressed, keep you from ever realizing what you could be." "Who would do that?" "Someone who knew exactly what you were," Asher said quietly, and was terrified of it. The words settled over Elena like ice water. She thought about her childhood, about the grandmother who'd raised her after her parents died. Sweet, gentle Gran who'd taught her to bake and read cards and always stay quiet. Don't draw attention, don't make waves, don't let anyone see too much. She'd thought it was protection. What if it was a cage? "I need to sit down," Elena said, and her voice shook. Asher was up immediately, guiding her to the couch. She sank into the cushions and pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to stop the room from spinning. The bond pulsed with concern, all three of them reacting to her distress, and that just made it worse. "Make it stop," she said. "The bond, I can feel everything you're feeling and it's too much. Make it stop." "Breathe," Asher murmured, his hand warm on her back. "Just breathe. It'll settle." "When?" "When you stop fighting it." Elena laughed, broken and sharp. "So never then." Riker crouched in front of her, his copper hair falling into his eyes. "Hey, look at me." "She did. You survived tonight. Survived exploding windows and blood claims and walking out of that ballroom with 3 strangers. You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm falling apart." "Yeah, well, Riker's smile was crooked, almost sad. Sometimes falling apart is the only way to figure out what you're actually made of, and I'm betting you're made of something pretty incredible. Elena wanted to believe him, wanted to believe any of this made sense. But all she could feel was the bond burning in her chest and the terrifying certainty that her entire life had been a lie. And the three Dragon Alphas watching her like she was the answer to a question they hadn't figured out how to ask yet. Elena's phone buzzed in her clutch. She'd forgotten she even had it until the vibration cut through the thick silence. Her hands shook as she pulled it out, the screen lighting up with a name that made her blood run cold. Gran. 3 missed calls, 7 texts, all time-stamped within the last 20 minutes. Where are you? Elena, answer me. What have you done? You need to come home right now. The last message was just 2 words. They know. Who's texting you? Riker asked, his earlier playfulness gone. Elena stared at the screen, her grandmother's words blurring together. They know. Who knew? What did they know? And why did Gran sound terrified instead of concerned? My grandmother, Elena said slowly. She's freaking out. Caden moved closer, reading over her shoulder without asking permission. His jaw tightened. Call her. I don't think that's a good idea right now. Elena. His voice dropped into something that wasn't quite command but felt like it. If your grandmother knows something about what you are, we need to hear it. Now. The bond flared with his urgency, with Asher's growing tension, with Riker's sharp curiosity. Elena wanted to throw the phone across the room just to make it all stop. Instead, she pressed call. Gran answered on the first ring. Elena Marie Hartley, what the hell were you thinking? Her grandmother's voice was sharp, panicked in a way Elena had never heard before. I told you to stay away from the mating ball. I told you it wasn't safe. You told me to go, Elena said, confusion cutting through her exhaustion. You said it would be good for me to get out, meet people. I said no such thing. I specifically told you not to go anywhere near that ballroom. Elena's mind raced back through the conversation 3 days ago. Gran sitting at the kitchen table, her wrinkled hands wrapped around a teacup. You should go to the ball, sweetheart. It's time you stopped hiding. Except that wasn't what happened, was it? The memory felt wrong suddenly, like trying to recall a dream, fuzzy around the edges, details that didn't quite fit. Gran, what's happening to me? Elena's voice cracked. My hands are glowing. My scent changed. I broke every window in the ballroom without meaning to, and I can't remember things right. I can't remember what's real. Silence on the other end, long enough that Elena thought the call had dropped. Then, quietly, where are you? Does it matter? Yes, it matters. Elena, you need to come home. Now, before they figure out what you can do. Who's they? Elena looked up at Caden, at the way his expression had gone dangerously still. Gran, who are you talking about? The Thornfields. Her grandmother spat the name like poison. Those dragon bastards have been hunting your bloodline for 300 years. If they have you, if they've bonded you, then everything I did to keep you safe was for nothing. The accusation hit like a physical blow. Elena felt Caden's fury through the bond, felt Asher's shock, felt Riker's sudden cold focus. All 3 of them were staring at her now, and she didn't know if they were angry at Gran's words, or if they were realizing she might actually be dangerous. What did you do to keep me safe? Elena asked. Her hand holding the phone was shaking so badly she almost dropped it. What did you do to me? I hid you, suppressed your scent, your power, your memories, everything that would have drawn them to you like moths to a flame. Gran's voice softened slightly. I did it out of love, Elena. Your mother made me promise. Before she died, she made me swear I'd never let the dragons find you. The room tilted. Elena heard herself ask, how did she die? But the words sounded like they were coming from someone else. They killed her, Gran said simply. Your father, too. They wanted the dragon-blessed bloodline under their control, and your parents refused. So they slaughtered them and burned the evidence. I barely got you out alive. Caden snatched the phone from Elena's hand. You're lying, he said into the speaker, his voice lethal. My family didn't kill anyone. We've been searching for dragon-blessed Omegas for decades because we're trying to save them, not murder them. Of course you'd say that. Gran's laugh was bitter. The Thornfields are very good at rewriting history. Ask your father what he did to the Hartley pack 24 years ago. Ask him why there's no record of Elena's family anywhere in the Shifter archives. My father is dead, Caden said flatly. Good. He deserved worse. Caden's hand tightened on the phone hard enough that the case cracked. Then he hung up and hurled it across the room. It shattered against the wall, pieces scattering across the pristine floor. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The bond was screaming with emotion, Caden's rage, Asher's horror, Riker's deadly calm, but underneath it all was her own spiraling panic. Her parents were murdered. By dragons, by the same bloodline as the three alphas currently staring at her like she was a bomb about to detonate. "Is it true?" Elena whispered. "Did your family kill mine?" "I don't know," Caden said, and the honesty in his voice was worse than a lie would have been. "My father did a lot of things he never told us about, if he was involved in something like that." He trailed off, jaw clenched. "I don't know. That's not good enough. It's all I have." Elena stood on shaking legs. The bond pulled tight, all three of them instinctively moving toward her, but she held up a hand to stop them. Don't come near me right now." "Elena," Asher started. "My grandmother just told me you killed my parents," Elena said, her voice rising. "And you can't even tell me if it's true or not. You brought me here, bonded me, made me trust you, and you might be the reason I'm an orphan." "We didn't know you existed," Riker said quietly. "None of us did. If our father really did kill your parents, we were children when it happened. We had nothing to do with it. But you benefit from it." The realization was ash in Elena's mouth. "If my family is dead, if there are no other dragon-blessed Omegas left, then I'm the only one who can help you. Whatever you need from me, I'm your only option. That's convenient, isn't it?" "That's not why we claimed you," Asher protested. "Isn't it?" Elena backed toward the door. "You said you felt me wake up. You said you came to the ballroom because something pulled you there. What if that something was just opportunity? One last dragon-blessed Omega, completely alone, with no family to protect her. Easy prey." "You're not prey," Caden growled. "Then what am I?" Elena's hands were glowing again, blue light spilling between her fingers. "What do you actually want from me? And don't say protection or partnership or any of that bullshit. Tell me the truth." The three of them exchanged glances. It was Riker who finally spoke, his voice stripped of all its usual playfulness. "We're dying," he said simply. "All three of us. Our dragon forms are unstable, have been since we were teenagers. Every time we shift, we lose a little more control, a little more of ourselves. The healers give us maybe 2 years before we're completely feral." Elena's anger stuttered. "What?" "Dragon-blessed Omegas can stabilize bloodlines," Asher said quietly. "It's in all the old texts. A true bond with one can heal genetic damage, can fix what's broken in our DNA. That's why we've been searching for so long." "So you do need me." The words tasted like betrayal. "Yes," Caden said. "We need you, but that doesn't mean we killed your parents to get you, and it sure as hell doesn't mean we're going to force you to save us." "Why not?" Elena demanded. "If you're dying anyway, why not just take what you need?" "Because we're not our father," Caden said, and there was old pain in his voice. "Whatever he did, whatever monsters he created, we are not him. We won't become him." Elena stared at the three of them. At Caden, with his iron control fracturing. At Asher, with guilt written across every line of his body. At Riker, who looked like he wanted to burn the world down just to make this easier. They were dying. They needed her, and she had no idea if she could trust a single word they said. "I need air," Elena said. She turned toward the door. "Elena, wait," Asher called. She didn't wait. She walked out of the living room, through the pristine hallway, and out the front door into the cold night air. The bond stretched thin, all three of them wanting to follow, but none of them moving. They were letting her go. That should have been comforting. Instead, it just made Elena feel more alone than she'd felt sitting invisible at the mating ball. She sat down on the front steps, her ruined dress pooling around her, and finally let herself cry. For her parents, she couldn't remember. For her grandmother who'd lied with love. For herself, caught between a past she didn't know and a future that terrified her. The door opened behind her. Elena didn't turn around, but she felt him. Asher's presence like summer warmth against her back. "I'm not going to tell you it'll be okay," he said quietly. Sitting down beside her, not touching, just present. "Because I don't know if it will be." Great pep talk. "I'm not good at pep talks." He was quiet for a moment. "But I am good at sitting with people while they fall apart, so if you need someone to fall apart at, I'm here." Elena laughed, broken and wet. "Is that supposed to be better than platitudes?" "It's supposed to be true." She turned to look at him. Really look at him. Asher's face was open, honest in a way that made her chest ache. He wasn't trying to fix her or convince her or manipulate her into feeling better. He was just there. "Tell me about your father," Elena said. The truth, not the sanitized version. Asher's expression darkened. He was brutal, ambitious. He believed Dragon Alphas were superior to every other shifter bloodline, and he spent his life trying to prove it. If your grandmother's story is true, if he really did kill your parents, he swallowed hard. It would fit. It would absolutely fit with the man he was. And you three are trying very hard not to be him. Asher met her eyes. But we're failing, because here you are, bonded to us, and you didn't have a real choice. We gave you an ultimatum. Come with us or face the council. That's not freedom. That's just a prettier cage. The honesty was devastating. Elena wiped her eyes, smearing mascara across her cheeks. What happens now? That's up to you. What if I want to leave, right now? What if I walk away and never come back? Then we let you go, Asher said simply. And we die. But you'd be free. Elena's laugh came out sharp and broken. That's your sales pitch? Choose us and we live? Choose yourself and we die? She wiped her face roughly, mascara smearing black across her palms. God, you're all terrible at this. I know, Asher said quietly. You're supposed to tell me it's not my responsibility, that I don't owe you anything. You don't. Then why does it feel like I do? Elena turned to face him fully, and the bond pulsed with his guilt, his grief, his carefully controlled desperation. Why does this bond make me care about three strangers who might be lying about everything? Because you're a good person, Asher said. Better than any of us deserve. Elena wanted to scream. She wanted to run. She wanted to rewind the entire night and never leave her apartment in the first place. Instead, she asked the question that had been burning in her throat since Gran's phone call. Did you know? Her voice was steady despite the tears still wet on her cheeks. Before tonight, before the ball, did you know who I was? Asher's silence lasted 3 seconds too long. You did, Elena breathed. Oh my God, you knew. Not about your parents, Asher said quickly. Not about what our father might have done. But we knew there was a Hartley bloodline survivor somewhere in the city. We'd been tracking rumors for months. Tracking. The word tasted like ash. You were hunting me. We were looking for you. There's a difference. Is there? Elena stood abruptly, the bond shrieking as she put distance between them. You came to that ballroom specifically to find me. The whole, we felt you wake up story, that was bullshit, wasn't it? You already knew I'd be there. We knew you might be there, Asher corrected, standing slowly. His hands were raised slightly, like approaching a spooked animal. But we didn't know what would happen. We didn't know your power was suppressed, or that you'd react to us the way you did. How convenient that I did, though. Elena's hands were glowing again, brighter this time. She could feel the power building beneath her skin, responding to her anger. How incredibly lucky for you three dying dragon alphas that I just happened to explode at the exact moment you showed up. Elena, that's not what happened. Then what did happen, Asher? Because from where I'm standing, this looks like a setup. You needed a dragon-blessed Omega. I was the only option left. So you orchestrated a public claiming that I couldn't refuse without looking insane. Her voice rose. You manipulated me. We gave you a choice. Between being taken by the council or going with you. That's not a choice. That's coercion dressed up as chivalry. The bond flared with Asher's pain, and Elena felt it like a knife between her ribs. She hated that she could feel him, hated that some part of her wanted to comfort him, even as fury burned through her veins. The front door opened. Caden stepped out, his expression unreadable in the darkness. You're both broadcasting loud enough to wake half the city. Either take this inside or shut down the bond. I don't know how to shut it down, Elena snapped. Then learn, fast. Caden's eyes glowed gold in the porch light. Because if you keep projecting rage this strong, every alpha in a 10-mile radius is going to show up looking for a fight. Good, let them come. Elena, Caden's voice dropped into something dangerous. I'm trying to protect you. I don't want your protection. I want the truth. Elena descended the steps, putting herself at eye level with him. The height difference should have been intimidating, but she was too angry to care. Did you know who I was before tonight? Yes or no? Caden held her gaze. Yes. The confirmation shouldn't have hurt worse than suspecting, but it did. We've been monitoring the Hartley bloodline for years. Caden continued, his tone clinical. After our father died, we found his research. Notes about dragon-blessed Omegas, about genetic compatibility, about a family he'd tracked and then suddenly stopped tracking 24 years ago. The year my parents died, Elena said numbly. Yes. No apology in Caden's voice. just fact. We didn't know what happened to them. The records were destroyed. But we found one surviving bloodline marker. A child born in Seattle, adopted out through a private agency, trail going cold after that. It took us 3 years to trace you to this city, another 6 months to confirm you were Hartley. Elena felt sick. You've been watching me for 6 months? Watching is a strong word. What would you call it? Waiting, Caden said. Waiting for you to show yourself. Waiting for your power to surface naturally. We couldn't approach you directly without knowing if the suppression was your choice or someone else's. So you waited until I was desperate and alone at a mating ball. We waited until you were ready to be seen. The words landed like a physical blow. Elena staggered back a step, and both Asher and Caden moved forward instinctively. She held up a glowing hand to stop them. Don't, just don't. Riker appeared in the doorway, his copper hair disheveled like he'd been running his hands through it. Are we doing feelings on the lawn now? Because the neighbors are definitely watching. Let them watch, Elena said. I'm done hiding. Good. Riker came down the steps, his usual playfulness stripped away. Because I'm done pretending this is anything other than what it is. We need you. You're the only dragon-blessed Omega left alive. If you walk away, we die. If you stay, you save 3 people who might be connected to the worst thing that ever happened to you. He stopped close enough that Elena could see the gold flecks in his eyes. So here's the real question, sweetheart. Can you live with letting us die? Or are you curious enough about what you are to stick around and find out? That's manipulative as hell, Elena whispered. Yeah. Riker's smile was sharp. But it's honest. The bond pulsed with all 3 of them. Caden's cold resignation, Asher's quiet desperation, Riker's reckless hope, and beneath it all, something else. Something that felt almost like recognition, like they'd been waiting for her just as long as she'd been waiting to be found. Elena pressed her glowing hands against her face and tried to think past the chaos in her head. I need to talk to my grandmother, she said finally, face to face, not over the phone where she can lie more easily. Absolutely not, Caden said immediately. I wasn't asking permission. She could be working with people who want to use you. Going to her is dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. Elena dropped her hands, meeting his stare. But she raised me. She's the only family I have left. And if there's even a chance she can tell me the truth about my parents, I'm taking it. Then we come with you, Asher said. No, she'll never talk honestly if you're there. She thinks you're murderers. We might be, Caden said quietly. Our father's sins are ours to carry whether we committed them or not. The admission hung in the cold air between them. Elena studied the 3 dragon alphas standing in front of her. They were nothing like she'd expected. Caden was brutal but honest. Asher was gentle but guilt-ridden. Riker was wild but perceptive. And all 3 of them were dying. 1 month, Elena said. That was the deal, right? I stay for 1 month, help you figure out what I am, and then I decide if I leave or stay. That's what we agreed, Caden confirmed. Then here's my condition. I go see my grandmother tomorrow, alone. I get the truth from her, whatever that looks like. And when I come back, you 3 tell me everything. Every detail about your father's research, every note he left, every suspicion you have about what happened to my parents. She looked at each of them in turn. No more half-truths, no more careful omissions. If I'm going to save your lives, I need to know exactly who I'm saving. And if you don't like what you hear, Riker asked, then I walk away and you die knowing it's your own damn fault. Silence fell, broken only by the sound of wind through the trees and distant traffic. Finally, Caden nodded. Agreed. But you take a phone, and if anything feels wrong, if anyone approaches you that you don't trust, you call immediately. Fine. And you come back, Asher added quietly. Whatever you learn, whatever she tells you, you come back here first before making any decisions. Why? So you can talk me out of leaving? So we can say goodbye properly if you choose to go. The honesty in his voice made Elena's throat tight. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Riker moved suddenly, closing the distance between them. His hand came up to cup her cheek, thumb brushing away a smear of mascara. The touch was gentle, careful, completely at odds with his usual chaos. You're terrifying, you know that? He said softly. Absolutely fucking terrifying. Good, Elena managed. You should be scared of me. Oh, sweetheart. His smile was crooked, sad. I'm not scared of you. I'm scared of losing you before I figure out why you feel like coming home. The bond flared hot and bright, and Elena felt her power surge in response. Blue light spilled between them, illuminating Riker's face in stark relief. For a moment, just a moment, she saw something beneath his reckless exterior. Loneliness. The same bone-deep, aching loneliness she'd carried her entire life. "We're all broken, aren't we?" Elena whispered. "Completely shattered," Riker agreed. "But maybe that's the point. Maybe broken pieces fit together better than whole ones ever could." He stepped back, breaking the contact, and the light faded. Caden cleared his throat. "It's late, you should sleep. We'll talk more about tomorrow's plan in the morning." "There's that time skip I was trying to avoid," Elena said, but there was no heat in it. She was exhausted, wrung out, barely standing. Asher moved to her side, offering his arm. "Come on, I'll show you to your room." Elena let him guide her inside, through the pristine hallways and up the stairs. The house felt colder now, emptier despite the expensive furniture and carefully chosen art. They stopped outside a door on the 3rd floor. "This is you," Asher said. "Bathroom through there, closet has some clothes that should fit. We can get your things from your apartment tomorrow if you want." "How do you have clothes that fit me?" Elena asked suspiciously. "We were optimistic. Or presumptuous. Maybe both." Asher's smile was small and genuine. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're here, even if it's complicated, even if you hate us tomorrow." "I don't hate you," Elena said, and surprised herself by meaning it. "I don't trust you, but I don't hate you." "I'll take it." He turned to leave, but Elena caught his wrist. The bond hummed at the contact, warm and electric. "Asher, if I ask you a question, will you answer honestly? No half-truths, no careful wording, just yes or no." "Yes." "Do you think your father killed my parents?" Asher was quiet for a long moment. Then quietly, "Yes, I think he probably did." The confirmation should have broken something inside her. Instead, it just settled like lead in her stomach. One more terrible truth in a night full of them. "Thank you for not lying," Elena said. "Thank you for asking instead of assuming." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Elena stood in the center of the unfamiliar room and finally let herself break. She sank to the floor, wrapped her arms around her knees, and cried until there was nothing left inside her but hollow exhaustion. The bond pulsed with concern from all 3 of them, but none of them came to her. They were giving her space to fall apart alone. It should have made her feel better. Instead, it just made her realize how much she'd already started wanting them close. Elena's tears dried against the expensive hardwood floor. She lay there, curled on her side, staring at the grain of the wood inches from her face. Her body felt heavy, disconnected, like something she was observing from a distance rather than inhabiting. The bond had gone quiet, all 3 of them pulling back to give her privacy. That just made the silence worse. Elena pushed herself upright slowly, her reflection caught in the floor-to-ceiling windows, ghost-pale and wrecked. The beautiful dress was destroyed, silk torn and stained with blood and glass dust. She looked like she'd survived a war. Maybe she had. The bathroom Asher mentioned was through a door to her left. Elena stumbled toward it, her heels catching on the plush carpet. She kicked them off, leaving them scattered behind her like breadcrumbs. The bathroom was obscene. All marble and gold fixtures, a shower that could fit 4 people, a tub that looked more like a small pool. Elena ignored all of it and went straight to the sink, twisting the faucet until cold water gushed out. She splashed her face once, twice, 3 times. The mascara ran in black rivers down her cheeks, circling the drain like ink. When she finally looked up, her reflection made her flinch. Her eyes were still glowing. Not the bright electric blue from the ballroom, but a softer pulse of light that made her pupils look almost silver. She blinked hard, willing it to stop, but the glow persisted. "Turn off," she whispered to her reflection. "Please just turn off." The light flickered but didn't fade. Elena gripped the marble counter hard enough that her knuckles went white. The power hummed beneath her skin, restless and alive, like it had been waiting her entire life to wake up and now refused to go back to sleep. A soft knock on the bedroom door made her freeze. "Elena?" Riker's voice. Quieter than she'd ever heard it. "You okay in there?" "No," she called back. Honesty felt easier than lying right now. "Can I come in?" Elena looked at herself in the mirror. Ruined dress, glowing eyes, tear-stained face. She was a disaster. The last thing she needed was an audience. "Yeah," she said anyway. The door opened slowly. Riker stepped inside, and Elena noticed he'd changed out of his formal wear into dark jeans and a t-shirt that did nothing to hide the lean muscle underneath. His copper hair was still disheveled, and there were shadows under his eyes that suggested he wasn't sleeping any better than she was. He held up his hands, showing he wasn't carrying anything. Not here to talk, not here to make it worse, just checking you're still breathing. Barely. That counts. Riker leaned against the doorframe, keeping distance between them. Asher wanted to come up, but I told him you'd probably throw something at him. Caden's downstairs breaking furniture because he doesn't know how else to process guilt, and I'm here being useless because apparently that's my role in all this. Despite everything, Elena almost smiled. You're not useless. I'm the fun brother. The one who makes jokes when everything's falling apart because actually dealing with emotions is terrifying. Riker's voice was light, but his eyes were serious. So yeah, pretty useless when it counts. Elena turned off the faucet and faced him fully. Why are you really here, Riker? Because you're broadcasting pain through the bond so loud it's making my teeth hurt, and I couldn't just sit downstairs pretending I didn't feel it. I thought you all pulled back. Gave me privacy. We tried. Riker pushed off the doorframe and took a few steps closer. But the bond doesn't work like that. We can dim it, but we can't shut it off completely. Not when you're hurting this bad. The admission made Elena's chest tight. So you feel everything I'm feeling right now? Not everything, just the overflow. The stuff that's too big to contain. He stopped a few feet away, close enough to talk quietly but far enough that she didn't feel cornered. And right now, sweetheart, you're drowning. So either let me help or tell me to leave, but don't pretend you're fine. I'm not pretending anything, Elena said. I'm exactly as much of a mess as I look. Good. Pretending is exhausting. Riker glanced toward the bathroom. Have you tried the shower yet? It's got 17 different settings. Very distracting. I don't want a shower. What do you want? The question hung in the air between them. Elena didn't have an answer. She wanted her parents alive. She wanted her grandmother to have been honest. She wanted to rewind the entire night and make different choices. She wanted to understand the power burning under her skin. She wanted to stop feeling like a problem everyone was trying to solve. I want to know why, she said finally. Why me specifically? There have to be other dragon-blessed bloodlines somewhere. Other Omegas you could have found. Why did you spend 3 years tracking someone you'd never met? Riker's expression shifted into something almost vulnerable. Because you were the only one who survived. What? Dragon-blessed Omegas are born maybe once every century, Riker said quietly. And historically, they don't live long. Either they're killed young by people who fear their power, or they're claimed by alphas who use them up and burn them out. Our father spent decades researching bloodlines, looking for any surviving genetic markers. He swallowed hard. The Hartley line was the only one with a living descendant. You weren't convenient, Elena. You were our last chance. The weight of that settled over her like a shroud. So if I leave, you don't have a backup plan? No. And if I stay but can't help you, you die anyway. Probably. Those are terrible odds. Yeah, well. Riker's smile was crooked and sad. We've been living on terrible odds for a while now. This is just more of the same. Elena studied his face, looking for any sign of manipulation or deception. All she saw was exhaustion and a strange kind of acceptance, like he'd already made peace with dying. You're not scared, she realized. You should be terrified, but you're not. I've been dying for 10 years, Riker said simply. You get used to it. What scares me isn't death. It's the idea that we dragged you into our nightmare, and you'll hate yourself for saving us. Or worse, you'll hate us for making you choose. The honesty punched through Elena's defenses like a fist through glass. I do hate this, she whispered. I hate that you need me. I hate that you might have killed my parents. I hate that I can feel you through this bond, and I don't know if anything you're feeling is real or just desperation dressed up as connection. It's both, Riker said. We're desperate, but the connection is real. I felt you before I ever saw you, Elena. Felt you wake up like lightning in my bloodstream. And when I walked into that ballroom and saw you hiding behind that ice sculpture, looking like you wanted to disappear. He trailed off, something raw crossing his face. I wanted to burn the whole place down just so you'd know what it felt like to be the most important person in the room. Elena's breath caught. That's insane, she managed. Probably, but it's true. The bond flared between them, hot and electric. Elena felt Riker's emotions bleeding through, felt his reckless hope and desperate longing and the bone-deep loneliness that matched her own. Stop that, she said. Stop what? Making me feel things, making me care. Can't help it. You're in my head now. Riker took another step closer. Just like I'm in yours. That's what the bond does. It makes strangers into something more. whether we want it or not. I didn't want this. Neither did I. His voice dropped lower. I wanted to find you, convince you to help us, and keep everything clinical and transactional. Save our lives, compensate you generously, part as friendly acquaintances. He laughed, sharp and bitter. And then you looked at me with those eyes and I felt something crack open inside me that I didn't know was there. Elena's hands were glowing again, brighter now. The power responded to her racing pulse, to the emotions churning through her chest. This is too much, she whispered. It's too fast, too intense. I don't know you. I don't know any of you. Then learn. Riker held out his hand, palm up, an offering rather than a demand. You've got a month. Use it. Ask us anything. Test us. Push us until you figure out if we're worth saving or if you should let us burn. Elena stared at his outstretched hand. At the calluses on his palm, the old scar across his knuckles. One touch and the bond would flare stronger. One touch and she'd feel even more of him, even more of this impossible connection that shouldn't exist. She shouldn't take his hand. She took his hand. The bond exploded between them like a supernova. Elena gasped as sensation flooded her system. Not just emotion, but memory. Fragments of Riker's life flashing behind her eyes. A childhood spent shifting too young, bones breaking and reforming before he understood what was happening. His father's cold disappointment when the instability became clear. The first time he lost control and hurt someone he loved. The guilt that followed him like a shadow. And beneath it all, the fear. Not of death, but of dying without ever knowing what it felt like to be truly seen by someone who chose to stay. Stop, Elena choked out. It's too much, I can't. Riker released her hand immediately, breaking the connection. Elena staggered backward, her back hitting the wall. Her chest heaved as she tried to process what just happened. The memories were already fading, slipping away like water through her fingers, but the emotions lingered. What the hell was that? She demanded. Memory bleeding. Riker looked shaken, his eyes wide. It happens sometimes with new bonds, usually only between fated mates, though. We're not fated mates. I know. That's what makes this so fucking strange. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, the air between them electric with possibility and danger. Did you see my memories too? Elena asked quietly. Yeah, Riker's voice was rough. I saw you at 6 years old, asking your grandmother why your parents didn't love you enough to stay. I saw you at 15, learning to make yourself invisible because being seen hurt too much. I saw you tonight, sitting alone at that ball, convincing yourself you deserved to be forgotten. Tears burned Elena's eyes. You had no right. I know. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix it. I know that too. The bond pulsed between them, quieter now, but no less present. Elena could still feel him there, a constant hum beneath her skin. This is exactly why I can't do this, she said. This bond, this connection, it's invasive. It takes away my choice, my privacy, my ability to keep any part of myself separate. How am I supposed to make a rational decision about saving you when I can feel your fear every time I think about leaving? You're not, Riker said bluntly. That's the point. The bond makes it impossible to be rational. It makes you care even when you don't want to. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, but at least now we're both drowning together instead of alone. Elena wanted to argue. Wanted to rage against the injustice of having her autonomy stripped away by biology and magic and circumstances she never asked for. Instead, she slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, her ruined dress pooling around her. I'm so tired, she whispered. Riker sat down across from her, maintaining careful distance. Then sleep. We can fight more tomorrow. I don't think I can sleep. My brain won't shut off. Want me to stay? Not touching? Just present. Sometimes that helps. Elena should say no, should send him away and figure out how to exist in this skin alone. Okay, she said instead. Riker settled against the opposite wall, close enough to see but far enough not to crowd. They sat in silence, the bond humming quietly between them, and Elena let her eyes drift closed. She didn't expect to sleep. But exhaustion dragged her under like a riptide, and the last thing she felt before darkness claimed her was the steady presence of Riker's consciousness wrapped around hers like a shield against the chaos. Elena's eyes snapped open. She wasn't sure what woke her, only that her heart was racing and the bond was screaming danger through every nerve in her body. The room was dark, unfamiliar shadows looming from expensive furniture she didn't recognize. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then she saw Riker. He was still against the opposite wall, but he wasn't relaxed anymore. Every muscle in his body had gone taut, his head tilted slightly, like he was listening to something Elena couldn't hear. His eyes glowed gold in the darkness, fixed on the bedroom door. "What is it?" Elena whispered. "Someone's in the house." The words sent ice through her veins. "Caden and Asher?" "Downstairs, but there's someone else." Riker rose to his feet in one fluid motion, silent as a predator. "Stay here. Don't make a sound." "Like hell I'm staying here." Elena pushed herself upright, her legs protesting after sleeping curled on the floor. The ruined dress tangled around her ankles, and she kicked it aside impatiently. Underneath, she was still wearing the slip she'd put on that morning, thin silk that did nothing to protect against the sudden cold that had seeped into the room. Riker shot her a look that clearly said now is not the time to argue, but Elena ignored it. She wasn't going to sit alone in the dark while something dangerous prowled through the house. The bond pulsed with Caden's sharp alarm and Asher's controlled tension from somewhere below them. Whatever was happening, they felt it too. Riker moved to the door, pressing his ear against the wood. Elena crept closer, her bare feet silent on the carpet. She could hear it now, a faint sound that shouldn't have been there. Footsteps. Careful, measured, moving through the hallway outside. Who would break into a Dragon Alpha's home? Elena breathed. Someone very stupid or very desperate. Riker's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing once. "When I open this door, you run for the stairs. Don't stop, don't look back. Caden and Asher will protect you." "What about you?" "I'll be fine." The bond called him a liar. Before Elena could protest, Riker yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. No intruder, no threat, just pristine white walls and soft lighting from the sconces that lined the corridor. Elena's confusion lasted exactly 2 seconds before she felt it. A shift in the air, like static electricity building before a storm. "Move!" Riker snarled, shoving Elena behind him. The woman materialized out of nothing. One moment the hallway was empty, the next she was standing 10 feet away, dressed entirely in black with silver hair that fell to her waist. Her eyes were the pale blue of winter ice, and when she smiled, Elena saw fangs. "Well," the woman said, her voice carrying a faint accent Elena couldn't place. "This is disappointing. I was told the dragon-blessed Omega would be more impressive." "Who the hell are you?" Riker demanded. "Does it matter?" The woman took a step forward, and the temperature in the hallway dropped 10 degrees. "I'm here for the girl. Give her to me and I'll leave peacefully. Refuse and I'll take her anyway after I've torn through both of you." Elena felt power rolling off the stranger in waves. Not shifter magic, something older, colder. Something that made her skin crawl and the light beneath her hands flare in response. "Not happening," Riker said. The woman's smile widened. "I was hoping you'd say that." She moved faster than anything Elena had ever seen. 1 second she was 10 feet away. The next her hand was wrapped around Riker's throat, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Riker's eyes flashed gold and his body started to shift, bones cracking and reforming. Elena didn't think, she just reacted. The power that had been simmering beneath her skin all night exploded outward in a wave of blue light. It hit the stranger square in the chest and sent her flying backward. She crashed through the wall at the end of the hallway, disappearing into the room beyond in a shower of drywall and splintered wood. Riker dropped to the floor, gasping. "What the fuck was that?" "I don't know." Elena stared at her glowing hands. "I didn't mean to. It just happened." Footsteps pounded up the stairs. Caden and Asher burst into the hallway, both of them halfway shifted, eyes blazing gold and claws extended. They took in the scene in an instant. Riker on the ground, Elena glowing like a beacon, and the massive hole in the wall. "What happened?" Caden demanded. "Vampire," Riker rasped, rubbing his throat. "Fast one." Elena threw her through a wall. "I didn't throw her, I just—" Elena trailed off. She didn't have words for what she'd done. The vampire stepped through the hole in the wall, brushing dust from her shoulders. She didn't look injured, didn't even look annoyed. If anything, she looked pleased. "There she is," the vampire purred. "I was starting to think the rumors were exaggerated, but that was genuine dragon-blessed power. Raw, untrained, absolutely magnificent." "Get out of my house," Caden growled. "Make me, little dragon." The vampire's smile was all teeth. "Or better yet, let me take the girl and we can all walk away from this. She doesn't belong to you. Not really. That bond you forced on her is barely a day old. It can be broken." "Elena," Asher said quietly, not taking his eyes off the vampire. "Go downstairs, now. I'm not leaving you." "Elena, please." The vampire laughed. Oh, how sweet. The broken dragons think they can protect her. Tell me, girl, do they know yet? Do they understand what you really are? I don't know what I am, Elena shot back. Liar. The vampire's eyes glittered. You've felt it, haven't you? The power that has nothing to do with being an Omega, the magic that predates shifter bloodlines by millennia. They think you're dragon-blessed, but that's just a pale shadow of the truth. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. What are you talking about? Your grandmother never told you. The vampire tilted her head, studying Elena like a particularly interesting specimen. About what your mother really was? About the bloodline that has nothing to do with dragons and everything to do with creation itself? Shut your mouth, Caden snarled. Or what? You'll kill me? The vampire's laugh was sharp. You're dying, Thornfield. All three of you. I can smell the instability in your blood from here. You need her to survive, and that desperation makes you weak. She moved again, that impossible speed carrying her past Caden and Asher before they could react. Her hand closed around Elena's wrist, cold as ice, and pain exploded through Elena's arm. The vampire was trying to drain her. Elena could feel it, feel her power being pulled out through the point of contact like blood through a syringe. Stop, Elena gasped. I can't. You taste like starlight. The vampire's grip tightened. Do you have any idea how rare you are? How valuable? Elena's vision started to blur at the edges. The bond screamed as all three dragon alphas launched themselves at the vampire, but she was already moving, dragging Elena toward the shattered wall. No. The thought crystallized in Elena's mind, sharp and absolute. She wasn't going to be taken, wasn't going to be used, wasn't going to let this stranger steal her power or her choice or her life. The light beneath her skin exploded outward again, but this time it wasn't just force. It was heat, white-hot and burning, pouring through the vampire's hand and up her arm. The vampire shrieked and released Elena, stumbling backward. Her hand was smoking. Impossible, the vampire hissed. You can't have fire. Dragon-blessed Omegas don't have elemental magic. Guess I'm special, Elena said, and her voice didn't sound like her own. It sounded deeper, layered with something ancient. The light was spreading now, crawling up Elena's arms and across her chest. It didn't hurt. It felt right, like coming home after a lifetime of being lost. Elena, Asher called, his voice careful. Elena, you need to calm down. I am calm, she said, and she was. For the first time all night she felt completely, perfectly calm. The vampire backed toward the hole in the wall. This isn't over. When the others learn what you are, they'll come for you. All of them. Let them. Elena raised her hand, and fire bloomed in her palm. Actual flames, blue and white, and impossibly hot. The vampire's eyes widened, and then she was gone, disappearing into the night with that same impossible speed. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena stared at the fire dancing across her fingers. It didn't burn her. It responded to her thoughts, growing brighter when she focused, dimming when she relaxed. She closed her fist and the flames extinguished, leaving only faint wisps of smoke. Well, Riker said, breaking the silence. That was new. Elena's knees buckled. Asher caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her against his chest. The bond flooded with concern from all three of them, so intense it made her head spin. I'm okay, she managed. Just tired. You just manifested elemental magic, Caden said, his voice tight. Dragon-blessed Omegas don't have that ability. Only primes do, and the last prime bloodline died out 500 years ago. What's a prime? Elena asked. Though part of her already knew. The knowledge was there, buried deep, like something she'd forgotten rather than never learned. The first, Asher said quietly. The original magical bloodlines that existed before shifters, before vampires, before any of the modern supernatural races. They were pure magic, creation and destruction in equal measure. The dragons descended from them, took some of their power, but were diluted, shadows of what they were. And you think I'm one of them? I think your mother was, Caden said, and your father was probably dragon-blessed, which would make you a hybrid. The first prime dragon hybrid, born in centuries. The words settled over Elena like a shroud. That's why the vampire wanted me, she realized. Not because I can stabilize your bloodlines, because I'm something rare enough to be valuable. You were always valuable, Riker said fiercely. But yeah, if word gets out that you're prime-touched, every supernatural faction on the continent is going to come for you, either to use you or to kill you before someone else can. Elena's laugh came out broken. Great. So I went from invisible to the most hunted person in North America, That's quite an upgrade. We won't let anyone take you, Asher said. You're dying. How exactly are you going to protect me when you can barely protect yourselves? The question hung in the air, brutal and true. Caden's jaw clenched. Then we bond you properly. A full mating bond, not just a blood claim. It would tie your magic to ours, make you significantly harder to steal. No, Elena said immediately. Elena, listen to me. No. She pushed out of Asher's arms, standing on shaking legs. You don't get to use this as an excuse to lock me in. A mating bond is permanent. It can't be undone. And I'm not signing away the rest of my life because some vampire decided I'm collectible. It would keep you safe, Asher argued. It would make me yours. There's a difference. The bond pulsed with their frustration, their fear, their desperate need to protect her from threats they couldn't control. Elena understood. She even sympathized. But she was done being pushed into decisions by circumstances she didn't create. I'm going to see my grandmother, she said. Right now, tonight. Whatever she knows about my mother, about what I am, I need to hear it. It's 3 a.m, Riker protested. I don't care. She lied to me my entire life. She gets to explain herself at 3 a.m. Then we're coming with you, Caden said. No. Elena, that vampire knows where you live. She probably knows where your grandmother lives, too. You can't go alone. Fine, one of you, not all 3. I'm not showing up with a Dragon Alpha army. The triplets exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them that Elena couldn't interpret through the bond. I'll go, Asher said finally. I'm the least likely to lose my temper if your grandmother says something inflammatory. Speak for yourself, Riker muttered, but he didn't argue. Elena nodded. Give me 5 minutes to change. I'm not interrogating my grandmother in a slip. She walked back into the bedroom, stepping over debris from the shattered wall. The closet Asher had mentioned was stocked with clothes in her exact size, jeans and shirts, and a leather jacket that fit like it was made for her. Presumptuous, she'd said earlier. Now she was just grateful. Elena dressed quickly, her hands still tingling with residual power. She could feel it there, just beneath the surface, waiting to be called. Fire and light, and something deeper that she didn't have words for. Prime magic. The knowledge should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like finally understanding a language she'd been hearing her whole life without knowing what it meant. She met Asher in the hallway. He'd changed too, traded his destroyed formal wear for dark jeans and a shirt that emphasized the lean strength of his frame. His eyes were still gold, still half-shifted, ready for a fight. Ready? He asked. No, but let's go anyway. They headed for the stairs, leaving Caden and Riker to deal with the vampire-shaped hole in the wall. Elena's grandmother had a lot of explaining to do. And this time, Elena wasn't going to accept anything less than the complete truth. Even if it destroyed everything she thought she knew about herself. The drive to Elena's grandmother's house took 20 minutes through empty streets. Elena sat rigid in the passenger seat of Asher's car, watching the city blur past in streaks of orange streetlights and dark windows. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking, so she pressed them flat against her thighs and tried to breathe through the anxiety clawing at her chest. The bond hummed quietly, Asher's steady presence like an anchor beside her. He didn't try to fill the silence with empty reassurances or useless questions. He just drove, his jaw tight and his eyes alert, scanning for threats that might materialize out of the darkness. Elena was grateful for the quiet. Her mind was too loud already, replaying the vampire's words on an endless loop. Do they understand what you really are? Prime magic, elemental fire. A bloodline that supposedly died out 500 years ago, alive and burning beneath her skin. Her grandmother had known, had to have known. You didn't suppress that kind of power by accident. The question was why. Asher pulled up outside a small craftsman house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where people kept their lawns neat and their secrets buried. Elena's grandmother had lived here for as long as Elena could remember, in the same yellow house with the white shutters and the garden that bloomed year-round. It looked exactly as it always had, safe, normal. A lie wrapped in pretty paint and window boxes. Want me to wait in the car? Asher asked. No, come in, but let me talk first. They climbed the porch steps together. Elena's hand shook as she raised it to knock, but before her knuckles could connect with wood, the door swung open. Her grandmother stood in the doorway, backlit by the warm glow of the living room. She looked exactly as Elena remembered, small and slight, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and reading glasses hanging from a chain around her neck. She wore a faded bathrobe and slippers, like she'd been woken from sleep, but her eyes were sharp, alert, afraid. Elena, Gran breathed. Thank God. I thought they'd already taken you. They tried, Elena said. Her voice came out flat, emotionless. A vampire broke into their house an hour ago. She knew what I was. Knew things you never told me. Gran's face went pale. Her gaze flicked to Asher, and something like recognition crossed her features. You brought one of them here. His name is Asher, and yes, I brought him because I'm done being protected through lies. Elena stepped forward, forcing her grandmother back into the house. We need to talk. Now. The living room was exactly as Elena remembered. Floral furniture, doilies on every surface, photographs covering the walls. Her whole childhood was documented in those frames. First days of school, birthday parties, graduations. A life carefully curated to look normal. Elena walked to the mantel and picked up a photo she'd looked at 1,000 times. Herself at age 5, grinning gap-toothed at the camera, held in the arms of a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. Is this my mother? Elena asked. Gran's silence was answer enough. I always assumed it was, but I don't actually remember her, do I? Elena set the photo down carefully. I don't remember anything before I was 6 years old. Not my parents, not where I lived before you took me in, not how they died. You told me it was trauma, that my mind blocked it out to protect me. That's true, Gran said quietly. Is it, or did you block it out yourself? Gran sank into her armchair, suddenly looking every one of her 70 years. I did what I had to do to keep you safe. Safe from what? Elena demanded. From dragons who might kill me? Or from myself? Both. Gran's hands twisted in her lap. Your mother was prime, pure magical bloodline, no shifter heritage to dilute it. She could create fire from nothing, could manipulate reality itself if she concentrated hard enough. She was beautiful and powerful, and terrified every single day of her life. Elena felt Asher go still beside her, listening. Why was she scared? Elena asked. Because primes don't get to live quiet lives. They're hunted, collected, used up by people who want their power. Gran looked up, her eyes wet. Your mother spent her whole life running. Then she met your father, a dragon-blessed shifter from a minor bloodline. They fell in love, had you, and for 5 perfect years, we thought maybe you'd be lucky. Maybe you'd inherit your father's shifter genes and none of your mother's prime magic. But I didn't. No, you manifested at 5 years old, set the kitchen on fire during a tantrum. Gran's smile was sad. Your mother knew what would happen once word got out, so she made a choice. Elena's chest tightened. What choice? She went to the Thornfield patriarch, Darian Thornfield, the triplets' father. Gran's voice hardened. She offered him a deal. She'd give him her blood, let him study her genetics, help him understand prime magic. In exchange, he'd leave you alone, let you grow up normal and safe and free. The room tilted. He agreed? Asher's voice was rough with horror. He took her blood, spent 6 months experimenting, trying to figure out how to synthesize prime magic and bond it to dragon bloodlines. Gran's hands clenched into fists. And when he realized he couldn't replicate it artificially, when he understood that the only way to stabilize the dragon curse was through a living prime bond, he changed the deal. He wanted Elena too, wanted to bind her to his sons the moment she came of age. My mother refused, Elena said numbly. Your mother fought, your father fought, they both died fighting. Gran's voice cracked. Darian killed them himself, burned their bodies and destroyed every record of their existence. I barely got you out. Used every scrap of magic I had left to suppress your memories, your scent, your power. Made you forgettable so he'd stop looking. The silence that followed was suffocating. Elena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Couldn't process the magnitude of what her grandmother had just confirmed. The Thornfield patriarch had murdered her parents, had planned to enslave her, and she'd just bonded herself to his sons. Did you know? Elena turned to Asher, and her voice was a stranger's. Did you know what your father did to my family? No. Asher's face was ashen. We found his research after he died, but the records were incomplete. We knew he'd tracked a prime bloodline, knew he'd been obsessed with finding a solution to our instability, but we didn't know he'd killed anyone. Didn't know about the deal or your mother's sacrifice. How convenient that you didn't know. Elena, please. We were children when this happened, 8 years old. We had no part in it. But you benefit from it. The words tasted like poison. Your father murdered my parents specifically so he could force me to save you. And now here I am, bonded to you, exactly like he planned. Even dead, he wins. That's not what this is, Asher protested. isn't it? You felt me wake up at the ball. You came looking for me. You bonded me before I understood what I was agreeing to. Elena's hands were glowing again, blue light spilling between her fingers. How do I know you three aren't just finishing what your father started? Because we're giving you a choice, Asher said desperately. We told you that you could leave after a month. We promised we'd help you disappear if that's what you wanted. Our father would never have done that. Your promises mean nothing when you're dying. Elena backed toward the door. Of course you'd say whatever it takes to make me stay. You need me. Yes. We need you. Asher's control cracked, raw emotion bleeding through. But that doesn't mean we're using you. That doesn't mean the bond is a lie, or that what we feel for you isn't real. How would I know the difference? How would you? Elena's voice rose. The bond makes you feel things. Makes you think you care when really you're just desperate to survive. That's not true. Prove it. The challenge hung in the air between them. Asher stared at her, something breaking behind his eyes. Then he reached up and pulled his shirt aside, exposing the curve of his neck where it met his shoulder. Here, he said quietly. My bonding mark, the most vulnerable spot on a Dragon Alpha's body. If you want to break the bond, if you want to make absolutely sure we can never use you the way our father planned, burn it off. Your fire can sever the connection permanently, all three bonds at once. Elena's breath caught. That would kill you. It would free you. Isn't that what matters? Asher, don't be stupid, Gran protested. I'm not being stupid. I'm giving her the choice our father stole. Asher didn't take his eyes off Elena. You want proof we're not him? This is it. Burn the bond. Walk away, we won't stop you. Elena stared at the exposed column of his throat, at the place where his pulse beat steady and strong. She could see the faint shimmer of the blood bond there, a silver thread just beneath his skin. One touch of fire and it would be over. The connection would sever. The triplets would die, probably within hours, and she'd be free. Free to figure out what she was without their needs clouding her judgment. Free to choose her own path without the weight of 3 lives hanging over every decision. Free to grieve her parents without their killer's sons in her head. All she had to do was reach out. Elena raised her hand. Fire bloomed across her palm, blue and white and hot enough that she felt Asher flinch, but he didn't move. Didn't step back or try to protect himself. He just waited. Do you love me? The question fell from Elena's lips before she could stop it. Any of you? Or is this just survival dressed up as destiny? I don't know, Asher said, and the honesty was devastating. We've known you for one night. I don't know if what I feel is love or need or just the bond making me think I can't live without you. But I know I see you, Elena. I see your strength and your fear and your rage, and I want to know every part of you. I want time to figure out if what we feel is real. And if it's not, if the bond is just using us both, then we were wrong, and you deserve better than being trapped with us out of obligation. Elena's hand shook. The fire in her palm flickered, dimmed, grew bright again. She thought about her parents, about her mother's sacrifice and her father's death, about 24 years of being invisible, suppressed, hidden from a truth that might have saved them if it had been known sooner. She thought about Caden's brutal honesty, and Riker's reckless hope, and Asher's quiet desperation. She thought about the vampire who would come back, about the others like her who would hunt Elena down the moment they learned what she was. She thought about being alone again, forgotten again, safe and small and slowly dying inside. Elena closed her fist, the fire extinguished. I'm not going to kill you, she said quietly. But I'm not staying either. Not yet. Not until I know for sure this is my choice, and not your father's ghost pulling strings. What do you need? Asher asked. Time, space. Answers about my parents that don't come from people who have everything to gain from lying to me. Elena looked at her grandmother. Did they suffer? When they died? Gran's face crumpled. Your mother made sure they didn't. She used the last of her power to make it fast, painless. She loved you more than anything in this world, Elena. Everything she did for you. Then I'm going to make it count. Elena turned back to Asher. I need 3 days. 3 days without the bond, without you three in my head, without anyone trying to convince me of anything. Can you give me that? The bond can't be turned off completely. Then mute it, block it. Whatever dragons do when they need privacy. Elena's voice was steady now, certain. 3 days to figure out who I am without you. Then I'll come back and we'll talk. Really talk. About what happens next. Asher was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. 3 days. But Elena, if anything happens, if you're in danger, promise me you'll reach through the bond. Let us help. I promise. It was probably a lie. but it was the lie he needed to hear. Asher left without another word, the door closing softly behind him. Elena watched through the window as his car disappeared into the night, taking the last shred of connection with him. The bond went quiet, not gone but distant, like a radio turned down to almost nothing. Elena was alone with her grandmother in the house where she'd grown up, believing herself forgettable. "What do we do now?" Gran asked quietly. Elena walked to the mantel and picked up the photograph of her mother again, studied the kind eyes and the gentle smile and the power that burned beneath. "Now," Elena said, "you teach me everything she knew. Every secret, every spell, every scrap of prime magic she passed down. Because in 3 days, I'm going back. And when I do, I'm going to be strong enough that no one, not the triplets or the vampires or anyone else, can ever use me the way your father used her." And then? Elena's hands began to glow, brighter than before. The light spread up her arms, across her chest, until she was luminous. "Then I decide if I'm saving them or burning it all down." The bond pulsed once, distant and aching. Miles away, 3 dragon alphas felt her power wake, felt her choose herself, and wondered if they'd just lost the only thing that mattered. If you've ever had to choose between saving yourself and saving someone who might not deserve it, if you've ever felt the weight of someone else's survival resting on your shoulders, if you've ever wondered whether love born from need can transform into something real, what would you choose? Freedom, or the chance that broken things might heal together? Thank you for watching.